Good evening, everyone. Welcome to ProductTank Oslo. It's been a while, so it feels really nice to do another event right now. So, ProductTank Oslo, today is something special. It's World Product Day. So, it's the day when you have events running across the globe, across all the 24-hour time zone in different cities. We were running a World Product Day sessions. So, for those who are new to ProductTank, uh, ProductTank is the world's largest product community by the product people and for the product people. What this entails is a couple of things. One is the product tank itself, which is a chapter like ours, and the Oslo chapter, for example. There are more than 200 plus cities in the world where there is a local community of product tank with different kinds of people. People who are product managers, people who are designers, developers, entrepreneurial people, all of those. So Product Tank is all across the globe, so to say. And our mission is really to make product people more successful by being together and sharpening our craft. This is a part of a global professional network for product people called Mind the Product. So Mind the Product is has been around for about 10 years now, for more than 10 years actually. So if you would like to get involved with the product tank, with the product tank community, and even level up your product career, you have different kinds of avenues. You could speak at a product tank. You could host or sponsor a product tank within your own companies, for example. You could even write for a product tank for mindtheproduct.com. You could become a member of Mind the Product, be a member there, and get access to innumerable resources that I will take up in the next slide. And you'll also get to network and work with lots of different passionate product peers. So mindtheproduct.com/join is where you need to head to be a part of this community. What kind of resources can you benefit from? There are a lot of blog posts that it's an accumulated wealth of knowledge over the years. There are podcasts which you can also benefit from. There's a Slack community with product people from across the globe. And there's also one channel specifically meant even for those that are from Oslo here. Mind the Product gets you access to conferences, lots of videos of past conferences and local product tank videos that are available, and even access to trainings if you'd want to level up your product skill. Right, so that's about Mind the Product and Product Tank. Tonight's meetup, the theme today is about product heroes. Now, heroes is like a recurring theme for me these days. And that's because I've been following a bunch of movies and a lot of TV episodes around the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's all about heroes and superheroes. So what better for me to kind of follow that up than have a couple of presenters sharing their views on product heroes. So today on the occasion of World Product Day, we will be celebrating product heroes. So we'll have two speakers today sharing their thoughts with us. The first one will be Janet Bumpas, and the second second speaker we will have is Kristian Berge, who will both speak one after the other. With this, I think it's about time. Janet, probably you could start setting up your computer. And while you do that, let me do one quick round of introduction about Janet. So the last time we actually had the pleasure of having Janet in Oslo itself, when she spoke about the jobs to be done framework and gave a very hands-on workshop. That was one of the more popular sessions we had in this product community here. Janet comes from the Silicon Valley, where she was being part of more than three startups. She loves all aspects of growing an idea and building it within the marketplace. After receiving an MBA from the Harvard Business School, she's worked at reputed consulting firms like BCG. She has also advised several corporate clients into profitability strategies. So with this, Janet, I welcome you on stage. Take us through how we can be product heroes.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm looking forward to this, and I'm here to speak to you about how to find out what customers really want. And I know the theme of our day here is product heroes. And it's not an easy job to be a product hero. Being a product manager or a CPO is definitely a very challenging role. So today I just want to focus on one aspect of being a product hero, and that's building a product that customers love. And oftentimes people say that and say, okay, I'm gonna, my company's paying me a lot of money. I have a lot of very smart colleagues. We should all probably get in a room and come up with some brilliant new features that's going to make a product that, our customers are going to love. And before people run too far down that path, I want to tell them a quick story from Microsoft. And a couple years back, Microsoft did an internal study. And the question that they wanted to answer was, what percentage of Microsoft ideas improve the metric that they were intended to address? So these were internal teams that were coming up with ideas, and then they did a check later on, kind of retrospective, to see if they were successful or not. And they found out it was a third. For my colorblind folks, I'll add that. But a third of the time, the teams working on a project, they actually found that it improved the metric they were intending to address. But a third of the time, the team's efforts resulted in no impact, and a third of the time, it actually made the situation worse. So considering you're being paid to improve things, you could say that 2/3 of the time, the team's efforts were actually wasted. And the gentleman who was in charge of this study, Ronnie Kohavi, he said all of the ideas tested were thought to be good ones, but neither intuition nor expert opinion are good gauges of the value our ideas have for users. So I would recommend that while you might think you have a lot of brilliant ideas, this might be a high-risk strategy to take if 2/3 of the time it turns out that actually there's no impact or no improvement. So then people say, okay, I get it. What we need to do is we build a product that customers love by going out and talking to our customers, right? And before people run off down this path, I do have another story for you. This one comes from Walmart. And Walmart had a team that was looking at how to improve the customer shopping experience. Because Walmart thought, if we improve the experience, people will then buy more products, we'll make more money, and that will be great. So the team went out and talked to customers, and customers said, shopping at Walmart, it's a bit of a chaotic experience. There's a lot of products on the shelves. It's not very soothing. We would like to have a more relaxed, soothing environment for shopping. So Walmart said, great, we're listening to our customers. And they then decluttered the aisles. And it turned out that Walmart lost $1.85 billion doing this, because it turns out that while customers say that they want a refined, elegant, decluttered shopping experience, they actually buy more products when they have the shelves jam-packed with products, right? So there's a gap between what customers say they want and what they actually do. Now, nice to be the size of Walmart where you could have a 1.5 billion revenue hit and just say, wow, that's an interesting learning opportunity, right? So this is not unique to Walmart. Oftentimes there's a difference between what customers say and what customers actually do. And we're actually all customers. This is a bit of human nature here. But some of the ways that we kind of do this as people is we really want to be nice, right? We don't want to hurt your feelings. So if you go out and ask somebody, hey, do you like my idea? People will probably be like, yes, I love your idea, right? Because no one wants to be that person who's like, wow, that is a horrible idea. I would never use that, right? We want to be nice. Another way that this gap between what people do and what people say comes up is kind of like in a confirmation bias. We all have our own narrative in our heads of who we are as people. And so we might say, oh, I always show up on time because that's the person I am. And we could have, 4 or 5 data points of where we did that. but we kind of don't recognize the 5 or 6 other data points where we didn't quite do that, right? And so we're just confirmation bias picking the data points that fit our own narrative. Another way is people can tend to be forgetful, right? So if I ask you, what did you have for breakfast last Saturday? You might be like, yeah, I think I had 2 eggs, right? But like, did you really? And so oftentimes we don't remember. And then, this one actually kind of gets combined with vanity, is that we don't want to look stupid. So we don't really ever want to say that, like, I don't remember, or, if you ask a question, they'll be like, yes, I'm familiar with that tool that I should know to use my product or to build my product. And like, meanwhile, I'm like, I have no idea. Or they might want to impress you. Like, sure, I would pay 1,000 euros for that because, I'm a big, important person and money's not an issue for me, right? But that might be different from what they actually do out there in the market. And then finally, another one is there's a cultural bias. As you can tell, I'm American. So if I generalize, we tend to be optimistic people. And if you give me a product, like, unless the thing like blows up in my hands and like burns my fingers, I'll probably say, sure, a 9 out of 10. I now live in the Netherlands, and if you get customer feedback, people will be like, oh, a 7 out of 10, right? And at first I was like, oh gosh, we're doing something wrong. We're getting these horrible feedback scores. But then they had to explain to me, like, no, actually here, a 7 out of 10 is knocking it out of the ballpark, right? And so we have to look at cultural biases, not just in between countries, but also within different, identity groups within a country. There might be differences as well. So this is not an exhaustive list, but these are ways that this difference can show up between what a customer says and what they actually do. So when I say this, please do not interpret this as saying, well, forget it, it's not worthwhile to talk to customers, because really talking to customers is a key part of product management. But what I always say is talking to customers, that qualitative work, is great for generating hypothesis. But once I've generated that hypothesis, I want to go out and confirm that with some market-based validation that I would call my quantitative work, right? So I might adjust this to say, build a product that customers love by talking to customers and then validating in the market. So when I think about how to validate in the market, I kind of in the back of my head use a 4-step process. Like, first I think about my risky assumption, then I prioritize, I have a minimum criteria for success, and I run a test, right? And if I take the first 2 together and look at them, normally I do this by sitting down and we write all our assumptions out on a Post-it note. And I like to put them up on the wall and then filter them where magically the most important ones end up in the top right-hand quadrant, because that seems to be the natural home of where you want to be focusing. And I'll get into a lot of details and some examples about how I go about this process of identifying them. But right now, I'll just say for filtering them, I kind of have 3 filters in the back of my head. First, I want to answer the question, do people want my help solving their problem? And if they don't, like, let's just stop right here. Like, no use like going out and building and make prototypes and working on things if people don't want my help solving the problem. I'll also want to say, will people pay me to solve the problem? Right? And if they're not going to pay me money, and by pay me, I mean pay me enough to create a sustainable business, then it's not, worthwhile for me continuing. And then I'll have some assumptions around that, whether or not I can actually solve this problem. So I'll kind of look at those as well, right? And then I'm going to run out and do a test. Now, before I do a test, I'm going to want to set a minimum criteria for success. And I have here a quote. The quote is by Richard Feynman, who's a Nobel Prize-winning physicist. And he said, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself. And you are the easiest person to fool. And, let me give you an example. So let's say I'm going to have a dinner party. And I am going to invite 10 people. And I can say up front that, you know what, if 4 people show up, I'm going to call it a success, right? So the night of the dinner party rolls around and I only have 3 people showing up. So clearly, dinner party is not a success, right? Because I said 4 people show up, only 3 people showed, not a success. But you know what's going to happen if I don't set that criteria in front? You know, because like I'm going to go at the end of the evening, I'll be like, well, you know, small dinner parties are the best. They're more intimate. You can really make a connection with the person. That's where you can really talk with them, right? And I'll find some reason, some way for whatever happened for that to be the best result possible. And I'm not the only one that does this. So if you look at, for example, researchers for drugs, in the United States, if you're going to do an experiment with a drug for humans, you have to register it with a drug registry. And a few years ago, the drug registry changed its rules. And it said, you know, before you run your experiment, you have to tell us up front just 3 very simple things. What is your experiment goal? What is your experiment design? And what is your data analysis plan? And when they did this for heart drugs, beforehand, 50% of the tests, scientists came back and said, yep, my test was a success. This drug has a positive impact. After they implemented this rule, only 8% of the studies came back positive. So that meant 42% of the scientists were like, whatever experiment they ran, they were convincing themselves somehow that that was a perfect result that proved them right, right? It's a bit of human nature. So we have to really work to hold ourselves accountable to like overcome that natural tendency. And the way we do it is we set upfront a minimum criteria for success. And then I go out in the market and I do a test. Now, if I'm trying to answer assumptions around, do people want my help solving their problem? Some helpful tools include ads, landing pages, and fake doors, right? And let me give you an example of one of these. So this is a product by Philips. It is called the One Blade. It can take off a full beard, dry shave in one pass. I don't have personal experience with this, but men tell me this is very exciting, right? And Philips had spent over a decade working on this project with the research with a lot of engineers and tens of millions of dollars. And so after all this work, they were finally ready to launch it. And their launching customer in the United States was going to be actually Walmart. And so they took it to Walmart and they said, here it is. This is our beautiful new product. And Walmart said, you know, Philips, we love you. We think you're great. But before we take your product, we're going to have to do a consumer test to see if our Walmart customers will buy this, right? So Walmart did their test. It's called Bases 2. And the product actually failed. Consumers were like, we're not interested. Okay. So if you're Philips, this is what is known as a really bad moment, right? You're going to probably graveyard a product that you've spent a decade working on, and people are going to lose their jobs. So as a last-ditch effort, they said, okay, we're going to put together a team, and they gave the team this assignment. They said, listen, we're not going to change anything about the product. We've been working on this product for 10 years, so we're changing nothing about it. You can't change the color. You can't change the form. You can't change the function. You can't change any features. Can you change how we talk about this product and make it a success? So this was a point that I joined the team. And the first thing we did is we started doing our qualitative interviews and talking to people. And we created what's called a customer discovery journey map here that I'm showing you. And now I realize it's very, like, you can't quite read the details on it. I'm just showing you to show like how detailed we went into the product or to the customer experience. And a tool such as a CDJ, or also like a job map if you want to do jobs to be done, it's great to help orient yourself in the opportunity space to kind of just let you know where you should look. But based on this, talking to customers, we said, okay, we identified kind of our assumptions, our big areas where we had to touch and convince a customer and make a difference, right? And based on each one of these assumptions, we said, okay, we're going to make an experiment. So our 3 big risky assumptions were, 1, we need a message that triggers people, right? We know walking down an aisle in Walmart, they like to have a lot of products on their shelves. So we need one that will like stop a customer and they'll notice it. And you know, you're getting a lot of advertisements in the world. We'll need one that a customer will actually notice. Then the second point we know is we need a message that will convert. Like once the person notices the product, it's something that they'll say, okay, I think I want to buy this, and put it in their shopping cart. And then the third one is we need a message that will meet the customer's expectations once they get the product home. So while this product can take off a full beard dry shave one pass, it doesn't leave you with a baby bottom smooth shave. So if that's what you're expecting, you're going to be unhappy. And this is a razor blade, so it also goes by the razor blade model, right? Where Philips doesn't make a lot of money on the handle. Where they make money is if you continually buy new razor blades for it. So for the viability of this product, we needed a message that meets expectations. Now, granted, it's got to hit all three of these things, right? Because if it triggers really well but doesn't meet expectations, or it meets expectations but doesn't convert, that's not going to work in the end. So we said, okay, we've got our 3 experiments. Now I need to come up with some messages. And the Philips executives were very helpful in giving us what messages they thought would work. So we said, okay, we came up with 5 messages. Fastest on long hair, blade made for beards, for manscaping and shaving, no clogging, no pulling, and this is not a shaver. And we set out to do our experiments. So the first experiment is which message will trigger. And what we did is we decided we would run a Facebook ad, and you can see precision made easy. That's one of our messages. Now it was non-branded because Philips was very nervous about what we were doing here. And if you clicked on this, it would send you to a site that would talk more about this product. This site, by the way, was a Tumblr site that we put together within about 2 days. And we got a lot of information. Which ones were people clicking on, right? Which messages? So then we were ready for our second experiment of which one will make the person convert. And so we started off again with a Facebook ad, and this time we convinced Philips to let us do it branded. Because we knew that the brand would change the experience. Just as Disney knows that if they put a Disney logo at the front of one of their animated films, that changes the viewer's experience of the film, and actually the viewer will see the film more positively. So at Philips, they knew that if they put their name on the shaver, that would change the experience. So here's one of the ads with one of our branding messages. This is not a shaver. If you clicked on it, it would take you to a page, a landing page that had branded. This is not a shaver, with a lot of product information on it below. Of course, we had multiple landing pages, so whichever message you saw on the Facebook ad was the message that you saw on the landing page. And you notice there's an orange button there, Get Yours Now. And if you clicked on it, it would take you to a shopping cart where for $29.99, you could say Checkout Now. You would have to fill in a whole bunch of information. Notice there's no credit card information because technically, we could not sell the product yet, and if you can't sell a product, you cannot be collecting credit card information. And when you got to the final screen, this was one that there was a lot of debate about because we want to be truthful and honest with our customers. And so lawyers were getting involved, but we had to say at the end, we regret to inform you that we're temporarily not available in your area, right? But so what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get at that difference between people saying, yes, I will buy this, and people actually picking a product and putting it in the shopping cart and going through the shopping cart experience. This is a much stronger market signal. So then we go on to our third experiment, which is getting to know whether it will meet expectations. And we actually recruited for it by that blue button you see, yes, keep me informed. So the second experiment recruited for our third. And at the third one, we would send you a shaver. And Philips said, we only have 200. You can't send more than 200. So we said, okay. So these are a bunch of Philips executives hand packing up shavers. We had to be very careful that the message you saw on the Facebook ad was the message you saw on the landing page, was a message that you received in the box. Pro tip, if you're looking to get executives to come manually pack boxes for you, in the center of the table, you'll notice donuts and cookies. Very helpful motivational tools. And then we sent it out to people, and they were allowed to try it for a couple of months. And every 2 weeks, we would check in with them with 5 questions. And for me, the most important of these questions was, and you might recognize this as a question from Sean Ellis, a growth hacker from Silicon Valley. If we picked up your tool tomorrow and you could never use it again, how upset would you be? And according to Sean Ellis, if more than 40% of your people say very disappointed, you have that elusive product market fit. With one of our messages, we were getting 90% saying very disappointed. So we came back, and of course, just meeting expectation is not enough because we need one that hits all three of those experiments. And we came back to Philips, and they're like, listen, we already know the answer. It's blade made for beards. We're trained professionals. We've been doing this for years. Like, we know. But actually, when the data came back, it was, this is not a shaver. And so I give the Philips executives credits because they said, okay, we're going to listen to the data and we're going to launch with this. So they launched with that branding message. They took it back to Walmart. Walmart gave it a customer acceptance test, bases 2 again, passed with flying colors. We launched the product at Walmart. And I like this story for 2 reasons. One, when product managers often think about how can I improve my product, right? They often think of what features can I add. And I just let you know that brand is, not a feature, but brand is definitely a way that you can influence your user's experience. The second reason that I like this is this story happened actually about 5 years ago. And so it gives it some time to play in the market. And just last week, or last month, Philips launched on their news center this story. Philips produces 100 millionth blade for its one blade, the product that disrupted the grooming market. Not bad for a product that was inches away from the graveyard, right? So I always love to give an offline example as well of how to test these things to validate in the market. This is a book by Tim Ferriss, The 4-Hour Workweek. Highly recommend the book. It's a great book. And when Tim Ferriss was launching this book, he actually did the same thing, testing out cover designs and titles. He used Google ads and Facebook ads to test out which ones would trigger people the most. But he also took his book into bookstores, and up front they have a table where the newly promoted books are. And he just placed his book on the table. And then he would watch and see what customers would do. And then he would swap out for a different cover and get a different, book experience, and then watch and see what customers would do. And so sometimes we get so caught up in the technology. I just want to say, you can also do this very low tech. I'm just trying to validate what customers do is actually the same thing as they tell me and they say. So, second bucket of type of questions. Will they pay me to solve the problem? And there's a bunch of great tools to help me with this: landing pages, pre-sales, letters of intent. But before I do this, every product has a target customer base. And if I'm going to do a vast simplification, you could say a product will target just one person, or it can target everyone on the globe. And if I continue my oversimplification, I would say B2B products tend to be smaller markets, right? Focus on that. But, there's some B2B products that are pretty mass market. Like if you're making a software to help small businesses do their accounting, you're pretty much mass market at that point. And B2C tends to be more to the right. All right, they tend to be more mass market, but if you're making a yacht that you sell for $50 million, you probably don't have that many customers. And if I would draw a line right about there, anything to the right of that line, I can do a market-based test. And as long as I'm doing a representative sample through the power of probability and statistics, I can project my markets and very accurately describe what will probably happen when I launch in the market, right? If I'm to the left of that line, it gets a little tough because I don't have a statistically significant sample size, probably. So then I have to use another tool, for example, a letter of intent. So let me give you an example of a company that did this. This is QuickSense, which is a Dutch company. And QuickSense had a hypothesis. They were a startup that employees in building where the environmental conditions were good would be more productive. So if you had, good air quality, good temperature, not a lot of sound disturbance, things like this, it would lead you to be more productive. And it doesn't work in every building because each building has its own, HVAC system, and they had to be able to hook into the system. So they had a rather small target market. So what they did is they went out and signed a letter of intent with 2 organizations, a city government for one of their buildings in a city in Amsterdam or in the Netherlands, and a real estate company for one of their buildings. And they signed this letter of intent that says, hey, we're going to work with you to launch the product. And if you're happy at a certain point in the future, here are the terms. You agree you're going to buy it for this amount of money and this amount, right? And so then they got in there and they got to do their learning while they were in there working with them. So for example, at first they thought that the building managers would want to know everything, you know, temperature, energy, carbon dioxide, light, sound, moisture, right? And it turns out the building managers were like, whoa, 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 whoa. We just want one screen that lets me know, am I in tolerance or in range or out of range, right? And so they learned and they made these changes. But while they were doing this, they were also getting a validation that people were willing to pay for their product through the letter of intent. Now, again, you can do this offline. So here's an old school example. This is actually the very first Macintosh, and it was made by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. So Steve Wozniak was the engineer. He made one. Steve Jobs was a salesman, so he went out and sold 50. And Steve Wozniak was like, whoa, 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 I only have one. We don't have any more supplies. Steve Jobs said, no problem. And he went and took his purchase letters to the suppliers and said, hey, will you give us supplies? We need to build 49 more of these. I've got my purchase contracts right here. And the supplier said, sure, I'll put a line of credit for you, right? So they got the validation, people would pay for it, and then they went and built the product. So if you're on the right side of this line, it's a lot easier. And there's a lot of different ways you can do a market test. So here's one, you can go on Kickstarter. And here's where you know that I'm really an American. It's not just the accent. This is the coolest cooler. This thing is awesome. It's on wheels, so you can take it with you to a tailgate or to the beach or to some sort of outdoor party. It's got a blender, so you can make a margarita. You can plug your phone into it. It's got speakers, so it can play music. Like, how cool is that, right? And I'm not the only one who thought it was cool. They got over 60,000 people pledging $13 million total for this product, right? That's a pretty strong signal that people in the market are willing to pay you for it. Now, if you know about this story, you know it actually turned into a huge disaster, because what happened is they couldn't actually manufacture it. They couldn't make it, and they had all sorts of delivery problems. So if I go back to my 3 buckets, that would be the third one. Can you solve this problem, right? And just because it's got the number 3 above it does not mean it's not important, right? We have to be able to actually deliver. And so a tool here some people use to test this out is they make a manual solution. And let me give you a quick example of this called a concierge service. And this comes from Airbnb, where Airbnb had a theory, they had a hypothesis, an assumption about the market that apartments where they had a professional photographer come in and take a picture would actually be booked more often. And that would make the host happy. That would make Airbnb happy. So instead of going out and building a big solution, what they did is said, okay, we're going to do a manual solution. Where Airbnb said, okay, we're going to manually recruit photographers and hosts. And then, we're going to manually assign a shoot to a photographer who will then schedule with the host. And the photographer will come do the shoot and will manually update their photos to Dropbox. And then Airbnb will manually update the listing and then manually pay the photographer. And once they did this, they could validate in the market their theory, right? And they could validate that, yep, we can deliver on this. And then they could work on automating and scaling it, right? So these are some ways that you can get some market validation to tell the difference between what a customer says and what a customer actually does in the market. Because it's like Steve Blank, one of the founders of Lean Startup, said, in a startup, no business plan survives first contact with the customer. Or, of course, there's the Mike Tyson version of this. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So if you want to be a product hero, I'm going to encourage you to go out there and get punched in the face and really understand for your customers not only what they say they want, but what they actually do in the market. So thank you, and have a good rest of your Product Tank session.
Thank you so much, Janet. That was extremely insightful. All the different kinds of methods to validate demand, desirability, viability, and the feasibility. Extremely I think, hands-on and pro tips there. This gets us to perfectly segueing into from product discovery to someone who has actually taught about product discovery. So our next speaker today is Kristian Berge. He is the Chief Product Officer, CPO in residence at Iterate, Norway, where he helps their portfolio of 17 venture companies with product management. Kristian is also the founder of ProductTanks, if I say that right in Norwegian, the Norwegian product community that aims to build knowledge and culture for the product management in Norway. He has more than 15 years of experience in product-related roles, such as a founder, as a CEO, as an innovation consultant, as a product lead, and like I mentioned, also as a teacher at the University of Oslo. Now he will be taking us through. So, Kristian, it's probably time to put your start sharing your screen there. So he will be taking us through concrete examples of how he and his team discovered an internal need, and he will illustrate how they tested their way to product success. Kristian, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be able to be here. I work at a company called Iterate, and as you might be able to guess by looking at our mailbox, what we do is we build new digital products and companies. So we build these products and companies either by forming internal teams and then spinning them out, as you see by all these stickers around our name, or we invest in startups and we inject teams or people into that startup and work with them to build products. Now, what that really means is that we do a lot of early stage product discovery. And what I'll do today is I'll just share a little bit about an example of a case we're working on right now that's early stage product discovery, basically. And like most new products and companies, it all starts with an opportunity. And this opportunity for us, where that triggered this case to be looked at, was that we saw from the different product teams and ventures we were working with that there was a usual problem for the product teams. The product teams make decisions on their product they're building every day that influence their success. And a lot of that is done based on research and testing and feedback from customers to be able to do that from deep customer understanding. However, what we experienced in many of our teams was that they had problems actually finding and recruiting those users to do those tests with them. So for these teams, each team that had this problem, what we did was that we went in and we made a system for actually finding these users and recruiting them and helping them do this research continuously. So the first thing we do is we make we add a call to action in the customer journey of their particular product, a place where they have the attention of the customer already, and that invites the customers to sign up for a research activity. Once they click on that call to action, you go to a scheduling page. Now this page only has predefined times where we know that the designer and the product manager have available. Usually it's 1 full day or 2 half days a week with 30-minute slots available for booking. And then we also standardize the way these teams could do these types of research activities so that we could minimize the preparation time, and they could just choose the different formats that were most applicable to what they had to learn any given week. And also standardizing the way we capture data from these, because once you start doing a lot of testing, you need a quick way to actually gather and synthesize this data that doesn't stop the day-to-day activities. And judging by the feedback from the teams, this is one particular quote from a design lead at one of our portfolio companies. Starting to do this type of weekly interviews or user tests gave them increased customer focus, and really improve their understanding of user behavior and change the way they're prioritized. So up until this point, we had observed a problem that was quite common in our portfolio. We had put together, stitched together a solution that we did for each of those teams, but we did it only like one team after the other based on a lot of manual work. But our mind started thinking about, could this be an opportunity for a bigger market to make this a self-service product here that's available for all product teams in the world? So we started an internal project called UX Signals with the goal of figuring this out, if there is a real market opportunity here. And the first thing we did was that we started reaching out in our network, the product managers and designers that we know of, and we started doing research interviews. Now, we do this for two purposes. One is, of course, to understand their lives and their jobs and how they address this problem in their teams. That's important. But also, it's really important to not trust what they say if they say that this is something they would like to do. So what we also do is we did design what we call conversion tests. So that we actually present these people participating in interviews with choices on whether or not they want to continue being part of the project. At first, it's just about going from an interview to inviting us to meet more people inside their teams. Then it's about signing up for waiting lists. And finally, it's about confirming their participation in a pilot for this product and confirming it either by a letter of intent or by actual contract. And what we saw from this particular case was that quite a few people converted to interest and wanted to confirm a pilot participation. 67% conversion so far. So this we so far interpret as a signal that there is a market opportunity here. However, as I mentioned, these are people that we contacted from our network and where we benefit from them already knowing who we are. So can we really trust this data? Probably not. So another thing we start doing then in parallel is that we start testing user acquisition channels where we use absolutely cold traffic. And one such test that we did was from Google Ads. Basically what we found is there's a lot of search around user testing online, around 1 million searches per month for user testing. And we did then a set of ads to see if we could convert some of that traffic and bring it back to our landing page. So we found that user testing itself was the highest converting keyword that brought back traffic for our site. We also learned from very different variations what type of messaging gave the highest click-through rate from our ads. And overall, we got around 6% click-through rate and less than $1 cost per click, which we also judge positive, but it's still early days, and we will do a lot more experimentation and also in other channels and compare these results. The traffic that we get from these ads and the other channels we're testing, we are funneling into a landing page. Now, basically what we want to do here is to test if we can provide a message, an offer, that converts the incoming traffic to a sign up to access a service. And basically it's a fake door test for a product that doesn't exist yet. And in the example of the Google Ads, we had 13% conversion rate. We tend to say that anything above 10% is a good start. So we're like within like the minimum success criteria here, but we hope to get that up. If you could pass 20%, that would be really great. Based on the conversion, we could also say that it takes around 8 visitors to get 1 conversion. And given the price that we pay for the traffic, for the ads, that gives a cost per acquisition around $7.5 US. Now, this is important also to take note, because it gives us a signal that we can use for our pricing strategy. Basically, if it's going to cost us $7 to get a sign up, we need to consider how much we should charge for the service then, to make sure that we can be cash positive and also have a short payback period, so we can push more of the revenue back into more growth and more ads. With the traffic getting from the ads and from the landing page, and also the traffic getting through our network, we also then start prototyping and user testing actual solutions. We do this first in design prototype. So Figma is the tool that we use in particular. And we iterate on these prototypes and test them on our pilot customers and the people who sign up online in order to validate that we have a concept that might work. And once we have a clear hypothesis of what the first minimum viable product should be, the next step is then to put that product live with the pilot customers. So our goal is to have then at least 5 pilot customers, and that will use that MVP, and so we can get actually hard evidence whether this works or not, looking at the metrics. What's important to say up until this point, we haven't written the line of code. Everything is done non-code, and we do it that way because it's really fast to iterate, and really doesn't cost much to pivot on our ideas. And if I try to put down one key takeaway from at least how we try to do this type of early product discovery, is that we really make an effort to test market demand before we invest in product development. If we do it the other way around, if we start developing products from day one, we will have to change the product every time we pivot in our messaging, and pivot in our feature set, and pivot anything that we have to do in testing the market. And if you do that, you're rapidly going to accumulate technical debt, and it's going to slow you down. So that's why we choose to do no code as long as we can, and try to validate the market first. That's pretty much it. In case you want to learn more, and I'll put down 3 links here for you. The first one is iterate.no. Go there if you're interested in learning about more what we do. We do hire developers, designers, and product managers. So always interested to be in touch with talented people. If you want to follow the project that I shared from here, you can go to uxsignals.com. If you sign up there, I'll reach out to you for an interview, so you get to experience the process from the user side as well. And finally, I would just like to mention the Norwegian product community that we're hosting, ProductLeder.no, or if you're English speaking, ProductLeader.no, and you'll be forwarded to the Norwegian site. We have a Slack community where we discuss all things product, and we also have meetups every 2 weeks or so discussing relevant topics. So with that, thank you so much. I hope there were some learning points here that we can all benefit from. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristian, for that insightful talk today. So indeed, it was a lot about product discovery, about how do you go about validating customer demand from the market. I think test before you code was the insight from both the speakers. So with this, I would like to take the opportunity to thank both Janet and Kristian for taking the time preparing for the presentation, and being available and sharing their insights with our community today. To the audience, thank you for taking your time, and hope you had some good learnings in this ProductTank Oslo. You already have access to the YouTube link. We will share this link again on the meetup, and you will thus be able to access this talk later, even at your own convenience, going through the nitty-gritty details that you might want to. With that, have a very good evening. Thank you from all of us from ProductTank Oslo. Take care. Bye.